It's our 5-year anniversary. It's actually quite a very special moment for me, because the business was born or started in a very disruptive period for me personally and professionally. I just gone through the most at McKinsey with what was happening with Eskom and Transnet and all the press around that, and what was happening in the country and the mood. Personally, I felt I needed to step up from a professional perspective, my ethical contribution, or at least my ethical standpoint around it. It was a big thing to take a proper moral and ethical standpoint on. And then personally, I was just going through the most with getting divorced at the same time. So this business really came from a period which was tumultuous and scary. There was a lot of fear, a lot of doubt, a lot of not being sure. And to sit here after 5 years, having confronted all of those massive emotions, still confronting them even now, but I feel like, you become a lot more at ease. From the very beginning, I knew I would be an entrepreneur of sorts. I didn't know what field I'd be in. I certainly didn't know I'd be a legal entrepreneur. But when the time came, all of those factors together were forcing me, I felt, or were giving me the opportunity to create something for myself within the legal space or the advisory space. So how then the name comes about is IusPrudentia is actually putting together two Latin terms. Ius is the Latin term for a set of norms, rules, standards, moral obligations, whatever you call it, anything that requires you to act or conduct yourself in a particular way, soft or hard, written, unwritten, it falls into the broad categorization of a use from a Latin perspective. And prudentia is Latin for prudence. So I conceptualized that, ultimately what we would be doing is helping people act prudently for their best benefit within whatever set of norms, rules, standards, laws, because people often forget that law is about judgment more than it is about the law, the hard law, because a lot of the times what you're advising your client on is simply, this is not the prudent thing to do. Whether there's a law for it or there's a law against it, or So that's how the name came about. And there's a story about the man. I took the man from the artificial intelligence movie logo. There was a little boy who was the I for intelligence. And the reason for that was, obviously, this law firm is born in, the fourth generation, insofar as information is concerned, and insofar as industry is concerned, right? And I wanted us to be acutely aware of the fact that the prudent advice that we're giving finds itself at, the most rapid development with technology. Industries are rapidly changing. There are new industries. Fintech is a thing of the past 5, 7, 10 years, and I wanted us to be cognizant of the fact that we are giving this legal advice and this prudent legal advice in a rapidly developing technological cutting edge way. So that's the story with the man, and we tailor-made him from that to being a black man, because and I think when you look at the logo, it's quite clear that he's black, because we are black, and we've got to celebrate our blackness and the excellence that comes with our blackness and how we go about it. So that's really the beginning. Yeah, I think there's two things that really changed the trajectory of the business, and that forced me to to look somewhere else within myself, to create something bigger. The first was right at the beginning of COVID. We lost our client that was contributing about 75%, 80% of our revenues. And as soon as COVID hit, they gave us a call, middle of the work essentially. We hadn't even finished the project. And they said to us, they're gonna bring on, they're gonna take on the work internally and use the internal resources. They're cutting on consultants. That was massive. Overnight, 80% of our revenues were gone. And it's back to the story of like the fear, right? I mean, I became so fearful of whether this business would succeed, whether we'd get anywhere. There was also COVID, which was adding to the climate of fear at the time. It was unknown. It was, everything was really quite scary at the time. But I think what it forced me to do was firstly pivot the business. The focus of the business at the time for the first 3 years was around empowerment advisory. But I pivoted it into a very basic, well-developed skill that is me, right? And that is the legal skill. So we started offering legal services and marketing them in a more aggressive way. And immediately we started picking up different types of clients. Our revenue did not improve for a while, but we could actually sell through the costs, although there was pressure. So I think the big lesson there was, I'd say to people, I'm in my MBA. I'm in my MBA because, there was a lesson in, revenue diversification, client diversification, the different service lines that you look at for different points in time of your business to either increase the revenue or shore it up or whatever the case may be, right? So that was an important lesson, because the moment that hit, I saw the importance of a different client mix, different revenue models, not necessarily having a concentration on one particular type of work and immediately I started setting up the business in a way that, if we got a shock like that, again, we'd be able to sell through it, I think, hopefully more comfortably than it was, right? And then the second thing, which was really major, we got a major matter, which has real implications for the country. Our client is in an industry where the matter is going to change the industry. It's going to bring about a new set of norms for the industry, a new set of rules, some governance requirements are going to change. But the client was really, really difficult around the way the work had to be conducted, the way the advice had to be delivered. So it wasn't just an easy, this is how I do my thing. It had to fit into a particular mold because of the certain type of client. But what that did for me is it immediately forced me to think about the systems, how we support our clients, how we ensure that we are efficient in the support, how we ensure that there's value for money, how we ensure that we're not, creating leakage in the system. And that was quite a big learning curve, because coming out of that, I mean, we're still in the matter, but the first parts of the matter were so shaky that we could only improve. And it was very clear that if there was no improvement, then we wouldn't be playing in the big leagues. I do this because I have a chip on my shoulder, man. Like I've always known, for as long as I've known myself or tried to know myself, that I can be part of a broader change, and I can be at the forefront of it, I can support it. So law for me has always been a vehicle for social change. a vehicle for justice, a vehicle for regularizing relationships that are imbalanced, whether it's in business or government or whatever the case may be. So I've always appreciated the preciousness of, the gift that I have to actually affect something positive in my immediate community, right? And it's literally at that level that I think about it. We act for a few Black junior miners who are struggling with access to minerals. That's a historical legacy thing in this country that not many people have actually decided to deal with. We've just taken it for granted that these big major corporations who got their rights and all of this stuff in questionable ways have the ability to continue as is. So to enter a conversation and advocate for a different status and a different status quo to give effect to what we think should be, an equality or an equity between everybody, for me is, I take that so seriously and with a lot of reverence and respect for the opportunity that I'm presented with to move that forward. So that's why I do it. I get the biggest joy and the biggest satisfaction and fulfillment for contributing and fighting a fight that is actually worth fighting. The talent story has been, actually all of the pieces of the business have challenged me at some point. And I think that's why I always say it's like I'm doing an MBA, right? Live, because, I've struggled with talent, it hasn't been easy competing with, big law firms for the best talent, right? Because we're a small business, we're bootstrapped, we try as much as possible to be competitive with salaries, but there's only so much we can do. And I think there's sometimes a little bit of lenyato when people come into a small business. They don't expect it to be at an exceptional level and don't expect to be working similar hours or just as hard as at a bigger law firm, etc. So it's been hard trying to keep a culture that I have grown to, or before I started my business, worked in. I worked in the largest law firms in the world, all over the world, so the only thing I expect is excellence. So it has been hard putting the business in its current size and shape and form, and putting it as a business that demands just as much as any of the bigger businesses or the more established businesses. So the team has been, there's been quite a lot of hand-holding that has been required in the earlier days, rather. The first 3 years, I think there was a lot of motivation and inspiration that you needed to put into the system to get the machine working. I think our more recent hiring decisions have been spot on. We've got, a perfectly balanced team as far as I'm concerned now, which operates at the right level, at the right frequency, at the right, level of excellence. I think the camaraderie in the office, is important. And I think people take that from you as a leader. I'm a relaxed person, but I work hard. And I work to a good standard, an excellent standard. And I think that permeates through the team. So it is important to find people that understand that dynamic and can buy into giving effect to that. And I think we're finally getting that right in the last sort of year and a half. But that has been a real challenge to get to that level. I have a simple vision. I have a simple vision. I want this law firm to, in its lifetime, however how long that is. And one of the reasons why it's a law firm that doesn't have my name on it is because I actually want it to outlive me. I don't want it to die with me, because sometimes, you get a cult leader, it's IusPrudentia Inc., and that becomes the name of the firm and the firm, right? And I was very deliberate about, I'm setting up something that will outlive me in its ideas and in its formation, and it will have the ability to adapt itself to whatever's happening, whether I'm there or not. But if you just extract those words, IusPrudentia, what I had in mind was ultimately a firm or an organization with people that are very very passionate about crafting practical, workable solutions for the world, and I mean the world. I don't mean a personal divorce between a man and a wife. I mean really important questions around how we think about our society in the different industries that the society plays itself in. So that's the vision. Whether we have 10 lawyers, 100 lawyers, 1,000 lawyers, it doesn't matter for me how big we get. The most important thing is that wherever we play, we've got to have the right impact on critical topics, on critical discussions, and we've got to move the needle forward. We've got to move the conversation forward. We've got to elevate the conversation. I think that's the biggest piece. We have to elevate the space. We can't come in there and leave the space untouched. So for me, that's what I'd love to see this company, show itself, reveal to itself, because it's going to be a process of a constant revelation, right? Everything is new. Tomorrow's new, the next thing you do is new, etc. But that revelation has to be linked to a betterment of our immediate community or our immediate society. That for me is where I want. That's the legacy I want IusPrudentia to leave. If you want to study law, it's a noble profession. I hate the fact that more often than not, we're seeing, the darker side of law, and that's okay, because law is people. Law is people. So we're not going to separate people and their troubles and their trials and tribulations from the practice of law. But I think if you do it justice, and I like that phrase, if you do it justice, you'll always seek an elevated experience within the law. You'll seek its noble intentions. You'll pursue its noble purpose. You'll pursue, the Puritan profession that it comes from, when you understand its power and its ability to shape. So I would say to any young student, if you want to be exceptional in the legal game, I think align yourself with noble intentions, align yourself with pure intentions, align yourself with, have a chip on your shoulder, and you marry all of those three together. I think you'll be absolutely incredible in the profession, and the profession needs you. Legacy. I have not felt a greater sense of pride and fulfillment than since I held what was then my freshly minted newborn, cocooned within my arms, nestled against my bare chest, oblivious to much else but heartbeat. Life beat. A solitary moment, the passage of the miracle of birth. In that moment and time continuum, an assumption of a generational burden. Birthing a nation, creating legacy. We give birth to the new home of the Phiri group of companies today, including IusPrudentia. Legacy conceived in the mind of creation, destiny in action. This here shall serve as nothing else but one of the many focal points for the continent's enrichment and empowerment, the delivery of its endowment. Her unemployed offspring shall suckle and find nourishment against the never-ending well of her bosom. Her intellectually starved orphans shall find refuge and replenishment in the gratifying and robust shelter that is her ideas. And when it all gets overwhelming, when the enormity and scale of our responsibility overshadows us, we shall remind ourselves of the responsibility bestowed by love. When you are overwhelmed by the next phase of your life and all that you are embarking on, remember that nothing good ever came from playing small and mediocrity, which you know very well. I love that this has lit up a fire and a fear inside you because of the sheer magnitude of what this is. I also appreciate how this further facilitates a self-awareness of all that you are capable of. Some days will be better than others. You will have many wins and losses too. I am not naive to how stressful this journey will be for you, but equally fulfilling. I don't even think you have full comprehension of what you have begun. You never play small, and I know you will change not just the industry but South Africa and the continent. I believe this entirely. I am blown away by the impact you have made in the spaces you have occupied. I wait in anticipation to see you reach and surpass all your dreams. I would take all my worth and bet on you with my eyes closed. I shall cherish that which is invested in me, that upon which generations shall depend. Legacy.